For 70 years, marrying an American came with an unwritten promise. That wedding ring was a shield. If you married a US citizen and your petition was approved, a green card was the routine reward. But in the summer of 2026, the government quietly changed the rules. The ring is still real, just no longer opens the gate by itself. To understand what happened, picture the whole immigration process as a board game. Your goal is to reach the final square, lawful permanent residence, the green card. For decades, there was a golden shortcut on this board called adjustment of status. It let people already inside the country become permanent residents without leaving. If you married a citizen, that shortcut felt automatic. Meet the requirements, prove the marriage is real, and the officer stamped you through. Then on May 21st, 2026, USCIS issued a policy memo with a very long, very deliberate title. It declared that adjustment of status is not a benefit you earn. It is an act of discretion and administrative grace. In plain English, they reclassified the green card shortcut from a routine door into extraordinary relief, something rare, something an officer can simply choose not to give you. Here's the crucial shift. A benefit is something you're entitled to when you qualify. Discretion means that even if you qualify perfectly, the answer can still be no. So the gate on our board game now has a new guard. He carries a magnifying glass and, hidden behind the booth, a lever labeled discretion. The officer no longer just checks whether your marriage is genuine. Now he weighs your entire life on a set of scales, tallying positives and negative factors. On the negative side go things like an old visa overstay, unauthorized work, or any past bending of the rules, even minor ones. On the positive side, you must now actively prove your worth. Officers look for good moral character, no criminal record, charitable work, professional accomplishments. And to prove your marriage is real, a wedding photo is no longer enough. The board opens a trapdoor demanding years of joint bank accounts, shared leases, and tax returns. Another trapdoor asks for affidavits and letters from employers, neighbors, and community members vouching that you belong here. Then comes the cruelest new square. The memo says that choosing to apply from inside the country when you could have gone abroad to a consulate counts against you. In other words, the safe path of staying with your spouse can now be treated as a black mark, quietly nudging couples toward leaving the country to apply from abroad. And leaving is a real gamble, because for many, stepping outside can trigger years-long bars of returning. The shortcut existed precisely so families didn't have to take that risk. Now here's the part that surprises people most. Even an approved marriage petition, the government agreeing your marriage is genuine, grants zero protection from deportation. That's because approving the petition and granting the green card are two separate squares. You can win the first and still be denied the second. And a discretionary denial is nearly impossible to fight. It can't be directly appealed, and if you have no other legal status, that denial can drop you straight into removal proceedings. None of this means marriage-based green cards are gone. Officers must still weigh the equities, and a spouse with a clean record and strong ties remains well positioned. But the burden has flipped. Approval is no longer assumed, and it must be argued, documented, and earned square by square. There's one more twist worth knowing. This whole area of law is in flux. Courts have already begun vacating related 2026 discretion policies, so the exact rules keep shifting underfoot. So here's the takeaway. For 70 years, the wedding ring was a key that turned the lock by itself. Today it's still valuable, but it's just one more item you hand to an officer who holds the magnifying glass, the scales, and that hidden lever. The gate that once opened on its own now awaits for a decision, and knowing that is the first step to getting through it. The first thing most couples will actually feel isn't a denial, it's a blizzard of paperwork. Because officers now have to document their reasoning on paper, they lean on two tools, the request for evidence and the notice of intent to deny. An RFE freezes your case and says, prove more. A notice of intent to deny is harsher. It's the officer telling you, in writing, that he's leaning towards no unless you can change his mind. Both add months, sometimes years, of anxious limbo. And here's the trap inside of the trap. The memo states plainly that a mere absence of bad marks is not enough. A spotless record doesn't win the square by itself. You have to actively pile up positive weight on the scale, or the officer can still say no. There's also a new square nobody expects, your phone. The guidance directs officers to weigh online conduct, so your social media history is now part of the file. Old posts and comments can quietly become negative factors on the scale. Then there's the oldest landmine of all, intent. If the officer decides you entered the country on a tourist or student visa, already planning to marry and stay, that preconceived intent can be read as a misrepresentation, turning your love story into an accusation of fraud. Now look closer at that push toward applying abroad, because it hides a cruel loop. Leave after more than 180 days of unlawful presence, and you trigger a 3-year bar. Pass a full year, and it becomes a 10-year bar. So the policy nudges you toward the consulate, while the bars can punish you the moment you walk out the door. It's a maze where the exit the officer prefers is also the one that can lock you out of your own marriage for a decade. You also can't appeal a discretionary no. Your main move is a motion to reopen or reconsider, essentially asking the same officer to change its own mind. It's costly, slow, and rarely reverses course, which is exactly why the guidance carries such weight. It's worth noticing how this was sold too. The press release trumpeted that green cards would be granted in only extraordinary circumstances, but that exact phrase never appears in the memo officers actually apply. The rhetoric was aimed at you, the rulebook is aimed at them. If a valid marriage and an approved petition no longer guarantee that you can stay, where should the line actually be drawn between protecting a country's borders and protecting a family's right to build a life together? Drop a comment below and tell me what you think.